Welcome to Momentum Monday. Today is August 11, 2025. Howard, how are you enjoying the summer in Coronado?
It continues to be fantastic. How's your trip?
My trip has been great so far. I really like it. We're just visiting different places every week and just exploring Bulgaria and Greece later. So it's been fun. The weather has been a bit warm, but I'm not complaining.
Oh boy. All right, let's get to it.
Yeah, I mean, the the large caps are back at all-time highs, and recently I saw statistics that the top seven companies, the so-called FANGA companies, they account for 65% of the Nasdaq 100. So like seven big companies account for, the vast majority of the US market, really. And
Yeah, it's a big conversation. Yep.
yeah, we talked last week that supposedly August and September uh, are weak seasonally, especially in the second year after presidential elections. But there was a brief shakeout like a week or so ago, but very quickly we recovered to new all-time highs. And while the market breadth under the surface is getting weaker and we're seeing sell-offs in select sectors, other holding the line and are pushing the overall market higher. At least the indices, they remain near all-time highs. And anytime you would see a hiccup in a leading stock, another one would just show up and lead. And we saw it last week and early this week with Apple and Tesla, which were the two laggards really among the mega caps. And even they kind of recovered because it seems like a lot of money managers are underinvested and they're trying to play a catch up by basically putting money to work in the most liquid mega caps. So we're seeing those constant rotations, even though there are like some, heavy corrections and distributions in some sectors, like for example, software. The overall market is holding well. Like look at this software ETF, IGV, testing its 50-day while the QQQ is at all-time highs. I mean, this is notable relative weakness. And obviously semiconductors have been one of the strongest one and it all-time high. So definitely I think it's a stock pickers market. You need to pick your spots, cut
Yeah.
your losers quickly, and give your winners a little bit more wiggle room. And that's what I'm seeing. What about you?
I mean, let's look at it. I'm trying to play both sides of the coin because everybody's talking about it. If we look at Nvidia, biggest company in the world, what do we know? I mean, so as thin as this market is, it's pretty thick, right? So if you take the biggest 10 companies, what are they, 70%, 60% of the S&P. So that's better than having two at 30, right? Like these companies are all so big and so planetary and so competitive and so interconnected that they're their own global, they're their own map of the world, right? Just in terms of cash and sales and reach. And so they kind of will almost all move together because they're so interconnected, right? And so when Nvidia, being the number one company in the world, when Steve Jobs was alive and Tim Cook was, running on Steve Jobs fumes, it was nice to know that the biggest company in the world was like for a reason, right? The iPhone, um, the computers, the App Store, and now we have a changing of the guard to NVIDIA. And what's good about that is as much as we want to worry about AI and compute, they they're big enough to go kiss the ring and pay the taxes that Trump, kind of state-led 15% of revenue, right? If forgetting fair or not, like at least they have the capital to do that. And no one seems to be scared, right? They announced over the weekend they're going to pay 15% of their revenue to the US government off the top to get the Chinese deal. So, however we want to think about it, thank goodness they can do it. It sets a bad precedent, I'm sure, whatever. We could delve into that, but the market's saying they don't care, right? Because it's found money. And the other thing is you've got a founder-led company that's the biggest company in the world. It's not like he's doing this overnight. Um, so you have that. But I think the most interesting thing is there's 10 of these companies, right? Let's look at Google, right? Like as AI slows down in terms of like the improvements, right, and become less exponential, it's so obvious that Google has such a massive, catch-up potential, right, with Gemini, et cetera. And you can see it, right? And then you can also see the best VCs in the world, the Andreessen, or let's call them the most knowledgeable of how the plumbing of the internet works, are telling you loudly that advertising is going to be a model. They're not saying this, this is just a fact, just like Netflix has advertising. Eventually, ads are going to be part of AI. There's not going to be one model that wins, right? So people are going to use Anthropic's growing just as fast with Claude. They're about to raise a huge round. There's Perplexity, there's European versions, there's DeepSeek. There's going to be ads. And if there's going to be ads, Facebook and Google are going to be there. So remains my number one position because the market's just starting to come to terms with that. There's no free lunch. You can't reach 90% of the population selling subscription products, right? So if this is going to be and that there's 10 models at the high end, and people are going to have very unique takes. There's going to be ads, and who's best to serve ads? Like I said, Facebook, Google. And Google's just being held back for so many reasons, right? Because they haven't done a good job telling the story, like Zuckerberg does. Like who's leading that place? Like Satya's done with OpenAI, like Sam Altman, as much as I don't like him, is doing it. He's on every podcast. Google's just doing their thing. So I think there's just 10 great companies. That's not perfect, but it's better than having three great companies. So I'm super bullish from that perspective. The second thing is we just took out the 2020 or the 2000 highs, right? So there's two ways to look at that on the Nasdaq. And two. So you can look at it two ways. Oh, we're in a bubble, or it's like, hey, man, that was a bubble like Japan. And this time we're hitting new highs where the S&P, where tech is 35% of the Nasdaq. But we live in a world where it could be 70% of the Nasdaq, right? Like all these like Disney and whatever are our companies are dropping for a reason because they're not tech companies, right? We market cap with momentum, and bigger the company, which happens to be tech because of the globalness of it and the margin, it's just a phenomenon that will continue. Like, and there's going to be another Nvidia, and the government won't make or break that company. They're going to sneak out of nowhere. So, so as much as I'm like valuations are very high, the markets are somewhat thin because the, the because of this wealth gap that goes in the S&P and the White House, a lot of new global policy. Um, and so, I'm not going to scream fire when the price action remains good. And then the leaders are just overvalued, but like not like 2000. So that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's still
And I,
like
and
more
I
than
really think the price action in Google is the most it's the most profitable company in the world. And so I don't think it's like fake. And they've digested just the government coming after them, bad policy, somewhat imperfect leadership and getting the story out, the woke crisis, yada yada yada, the OpenAI story. They're dead. And meanwhile, the stock is setting up to have a huge run. And I think about it like Goldman Sachs, right? Like I think about if we go to look at Goldman Sachs, for years they went sideways as they kind of journey trying to be a fintech company. If you go back and look at the market, for years, it went between, 200 and 300. And then you see the breakout, right? So I just think if the mark, all things being equal, Google's going to do to to tech, to this AI world with their reach, what, Goldman did to banking, and so I think there's some catch up there, and that should put if Google executes, that should put a lid on how bad the market's going to be, you know? So it's fun to be negative because of valuations. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, like, I need to apologize for the bad internet connection because I'm in the
No, we can see it. I can see it.
and but yes, you make some solid points, and just from a swing trading perspective, Google has been a much better entry, when it pulls back to its rising, 50-day moving average. So you don't really have to chase unless your horizon is like in like years.
Yeah, and then let's look at some other stuff like Reddit. So again, in the world of AI, they, there's so many undervalued companies that have, and YouTube is one of them, and same with Gmail, that just have so much human input data that you're going to see more smaller companies start acting like Reddit that have their own unique data. If we go to a weekly on Reddit, we'll see, right? I mean, these machines have to be trained on data, and there's thousands of unique data sets around the world, some of them public companies that people are going to start to recognize that AI doesn't kill them. And StockTwits is one of them, right? Obviously, Twitter is owned by Elon and Grok, but there's going to be the Grokification or the AIification of all these data sets, right? So there won't be one LLM to rule them all. What else is interesting to me is like the treasury. Ethereum was a huge breakout. No one saw that one. Well, it's a
Yeah,
few, people have been, it's a momentum blockchain at this point because it was written off for dead not that long ago. And all of a sudden, it's tripled, and second largest chain again. And because of treasuries and stable coins and some changes in policy around how Ethereum was being run, all these things have added up to like a momentum from nowhere. And um, so you're seeing Tom Lee start a Bitminer, I think BMNR, which is kind of like a SPAC for buying Ethereum treasury. BMNR, I think. Yeah.
yeah,
And you can just see that's kind of the proxy right now. And there's going to be 100 copycats. I'm trying to think what else is working. Uh, but if you're not working, like if you're software, look at Monday.com. Like these SaaS companies that don't, they're just getting disrupted. And if you don't, what's this gap down? If you go look at the month, this is one of the strongest cloud,
yeah. There's a
companies.
weekly, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
so many of them.
Salesforce is trading at its lowest multiple of sales in history, CRM,
Yeah,
right? So again, we're starting to see the heaviness of what AI is coming for, which is mostly enterprise businesses that are not built for an AI world. Like they're top heavy, a lot of execs. You're selling software that's per seat and monthly versus output based. So we have this huge bear market in a huge section of technology happening,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
And
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
just,
some
so
of
it's
these
not like
software
everything's going
stocks,
up.
yeah, some of the software stocks. So definitely the market's kind of trying to point to the winners and the losers. Uh,
Yeah. So this is not just straight up easy if you're picking stocks. But I don't think we could have a better market. You have crazy president, you have high interest rates, you have some monopolies being formed, you have disruption in software, you have 10 huge companies gobbling up things. There's just a lot to digest. And I
yeah,
don't think the market is really that easy to read right. Well, sorry, the trend is easy to read. Reading why and how is like there's a lot of confusion you can tell.
yeah,
But straight price action is like what call me when we have some real distribution
Yeah,
in
I
the
mean, there are definitely some
the
great
10 leading
opportunities. Yeah.
names. And when we get real distribution in Meta and real distribution in Google, and Apple was close, but all of a sudden Bayer stepped in. When we get real distribution in Nvidia, right? The last time we had real distribution in Nvidia was DeepSeek. And that just turned out to be a buying opportunity, no, Nvidia. So the DeepSeek thing, and so now the market now knows that there's not just going to be one LLM and Nvidia is a winner. So I think I think, it's easy to scare people with numbers, but like the price action's good. So let's
Yeah.
leave it at that. Enjoy the rest of
All
your
right,
trip.
Howard. Thank you. See
All
you
right,
next.
see you, everybody.
Bye.